Hey guys, welcome back to my CCNA 200-301 course. In this video, I'm going to show you some VLAN basic configurations and troubleshooting, as well as some commands to deal with MAC address table. Are you ready? Let's get started. Alright, this is our today's scenario, which has been implemented in GNS 3. So we have two switches, switch 1 and switch 2. And then we have 5 PCs in two different IP subnets, 192.168.1.0 and 2.0. Switches do not have any configurations, and they are on actually default settings. I want to show you when you unbox Cisco switches and connect your devices to them and set your IP addresses, devices would be able to communicate to each other without any extra configuration required on the switches. Let's have a look. Now if I go to PC1 and ping 192.168.1.2, which is PC3 on the other switch, I would be able to ping it. As well as PC5, which is on the same switch as PC1. So communications are okay, and devices would be able to communicate to each other without any extra configuration required on Cisco switches. Now let's have a look at the switch configuration. The first command I want to show you here is show VLAN brief. This command will show you which VLANs have been defined on this switch and what is their status, as well as which interfaces have been assigned to individual VLANs. So if I run this command, you'd be able to see that we have 5 predefined VLANs on a Cisco switch, VLAN 1 and also 1002 to 1005. As I mentioned before, you cannot delete or modify these VLANs. And also, for these 4 VLANs, you cannot use them for your access VLANs as well. I mean, you cannot assign an interface or multiple interfaces to these VLANs. Okay? As you can see by default, VLAN 1 has got a default name on it. Its status is active, and all interfaces of the switch have been assigned to this VLAN. With this configuration, all of our PCs would be in a single VLAN, and then they would be able to communicate to each other. So you can run this show VLAN command without the brief parameter as well. If you do that, it will give you some extra information, as you can see in this table. Some information like MTU, the type, and so on and so forth, which is not required at this stage of this course. So from now on, we just use show VLAN brief. Now let's see how we can define new VLANs on our Cisco switches. To define new VLANs, we have to go to global configuration mode first. So we say configure terminal. And then you're using VLAN keyword to define the VLAN. In front of VLAN, we have to use our VLAN ID. For example, I want to use VLAN ID 2 for this new VLAN. As you can see here, we are in config-VLAN subcommand mode. One of the parameters that you can use for your VLANs is giving them a name, which is actually a descriptive name that shows why we created this VLAN. Like, for example, we might have created our VLANs for our different departments. Okay, so by using name keyword, I give a name to my VLAN. For example, this VLAN is being created for IT department. Okay, and now let's see what would happen if I create a VLAN and do not name it and don't give it a name. Let's see what would happen. If I say VLAN 3, for example, and don't give it a name, and now if I run show VLAN brief, you can see that VLAN 2 is being defined and the name is IT, but VLAN 3 is being assigned a default name to it. The default name is VLAN and a 4-digit number, which reflects your VLAN ID. So for VLAN 3, it is 0003. And if it was 4, it would be 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. As you can see, these two VLANs also are active, but there is no interface is being assigned to these two VLANs. What I'm going to do now is assigning one of those interfaces that actually was in VLAN 1 and when it was connected to PC1, and see how it reflects the PC1 communications. So if I clear my screen, to be able to assign interfaces to VLANs, you have to pick your desired interface or interfaces first. To pick a single interface, we say interface and then type and number. This is an emulated device, so it has 10 megabit interfaces, but in recent switches you will be having at least gigabit Ethernet or 25, 40, 100 and maybe 400 and more. So we pick our single interface. To assign this interface to that specific VLAN, we use switch port command. Switch port access VLAN and the VLAN ID you want to use to assign this interface to. If I run show VLAN brief once again, you can see that Ethernet 0/1 is removed from VLAN 1 and is being assigned to VLAN 2. Now if I go to PC1, I'm expecting not being able to ping 1.2 or 1.3. Why? Because now PC1 is in a different VLAN with these two computers, so it is not able to communicate to these devices. When you need to assign multiple interfaces to a VLAN, using an interface command is going to be a pain, and I mean doing interfaces individually. So if you need to assign multiple interfaces at the same time to a VLAN, we can use interface range command instead. So we say interface range and then we pick our range. For example, Ethernet 3/023, which means 3/0, 3/1, 3/2, and 3/3. And we can add more by adding a comma as well, like Ethernet 2/0 to 3. And also we can pick individual interfaces as well, like Ethernet 2/0 only. And if I press enter here, these 5 interfaces now is being picked, and my actually command prompt has been changed to if-range, which shows you are in a range of interfaces. So be careful if you want to run a command. So I say switch port access, for example, VLAN 2, which is the other thing I want to show you. This switch actually doesn't have VLAN 2. This is switch 2. I want to show you what would happen if you run this command switch port access VLAN and that VLAN is not defined on the switch. Okay, so if you use an ID in front of this command, I mean a VLAN that is not being defined on your switch, you will get this message. Access VLAN does not exist. Obviously you did not define it. So what would happen? Creating VLAN 2. So this is actually 2 birds with 1 stone. You don't have to create VLANs in prior. You just need to switch port access and then give it a VLAN ID that is not defined, and the switch will be defining that VLAN for you. The only thing you may need to do is just give your VLAN a name. Okay, so now if I go to show VLAN, you can see that VLAN 2 is being defined, that default name is being assigned to it, it is active, and these 5 interfaces have been assigned to this VLAN. The next set of commands I want to show you are related to actually dealing with MAC address table. As I mentioned before, MAC address table is the reference table for switches. When they receive frames, they actually look up in this table and find the entry related to the destination MAC address of that frame and then forward it to the related interface. To be able to see the contents of this MAC address table, we use show MAC address table command. And the output shows you which VLAN that MAC address is being actually working on. What is the MAC address of that device? Is it being learned dynamically, or you as a network administrator defined it statically, which I'll show you how you can do that in a minute. And then which port or interface is being connected to. So with this information, if a frame comes to the switch with the destination MAC address of this, then the switch will forward the packet to Ethernet 0/1. How we can add static entries to a MAC address table? We can go to global configuration mode and then use MAC address table and then a static and then a MAC address like this one. The format of your MAC addresses in Cisco switches is like this. Unlike Microsoft and Linux, it's a bit different. 4 digits and they're separated by dots. And then which VLAN it is on and which interface it is actually connected to. Ethernet 0/1. If we run show MAC address table once again, you can see that a static entry also added to this table. So now I can show you how this MAC address table, show MAC address table command can be a bit customized. If you need to only have a look at the dynamic entries of your MAC address table and you're not interested in static entries, you can use show MAC address table dynamic. It only shows you the dynamic entries, and you can use it all the way around instead of dynamic using a static, and it shows you only static entries of your MAC address table. The other two customization you can use for show MAC address table is actually show MAC address table and then VLAN and VLAN ID. So you can only shows the output for a specific VLAN. I mean the MAC address entries of a specific VLAN. And also you can customize it based on the interface, like interface Ethernet 0/1 shows me only the MAC addresses that are registered for that specific interface. The next show MAC address table command I want to show you is pretty interesting. Show MAC address table count. Show MAC address table count shows you the number of registered MAC addresses and also the MAC address space available on that specific switch. As I mentioned before, the number of MAC addresses you can have in your MAC address table depends on the switch model and the memory that is being assigned to the MAC address table. For this switch, this is the number of MAC addresses you can have in your switch. Sometimes if you have a look, maybe you have an attack or something on your switch and your switch behaves a bit weird, you can have a look at the counts. If this number is 0, for example, that means that that MAC address table has got an issue and actually it cannot handle more entries, so some issues may happen to your network. If you remember that, I mentioned in the previous videos that each MAC address entry is actually assigning an aging time. And if within that inactivity timeout or timer, the device is not communicating to the switch will be removing its entry from the MAC address table to actually remove the devices that are not connected to our network anymore. That inactivity timer or aging time by default is 300 seconds. How you can see that timer, what is the value of this timer at the moment on our switch? By using show MAC address table aging time. Aging time globally set as 300, but as you can see here, you can define it per VLAN as well. So if you define the VLAN value, the VLAN value will take precedence over the global value. To change this global value, if you go to global configuration mode, you say MAC address table and then aging time, and then for example 400. If we have a look at the aging time entry again, you can see that 300 value is being changed to 400. How we can set a value for a specific VLAN? We say MAC address table aging time, for example 500, and then VLAN 1, for example. Okay, if we have a look at the aging time once again, you can see two entries. One is set globally and one is set for VLAN 1, and in this situation this value will take precedence for VLAN 1, and for the rest of the VLANs this value will be applied. In some situations you may need to clear some dynamic entries from MAC address table. To be able to do that, in privilege mode we say clear and then MAC address table and then dynamic. Here we have a few options. First, we can use VLAN command and then give it the VLAN ID. So with this command, switch will actually clear all MAC address table entries which are related to that specific VLAN. Also, we can customize it for a specific interface like Ethernet 0/1. Hey switch, delete all entries that are connected or registered for this interface. Or clear MAC address table dynamic address and a specific MAC address. So you only delete one specific MAC address from the MAC address table with this command. So you have three options here. Or you can just press enter and it will delete all actually MAC address dynamic entries in your MAC address table. So you have four options here. Alright guys, this was our today's video. In the next video I'll be talking about trunking and how we can actually trunk interfaces between the switches and communicate computers or devices that are connected to same VLANs on different switches in our network infrastructure. I wish you enjoyed today's video. See you in the next ones, and thanks for watching.